C3 students, welcome back to day 2 of our Serve Week. It's Tuesday morning, or Tuesday, depending on when you're actually getting a chance to watch the video. But we're rolling into our second day of learning what it looks like for us to serve or to think of people outside of ourselves. Now, yesterday we talked about what it looks like for us to think about our stories. We looked at Paul's story as he shared it with King Agrippa, and how he kind of went through who he was before Jesus got a hold of him, what Jesus did when Jesus confronted him, and then what Paul's life was like after, what Jesus was doing in Paul's life after. We challenged you guys to sit down and to think about your story and to write something up and to begin praying for someone that you know who might not know who Jesus is or might not have a relationship with Jesus. And we challenge you to be praying specifically that God would open up an opportunity for you to have a conversation with one of those persons that you were thinking of. Today, since it's Tuesday, we're continuing in our discussions of what it looks like for us to serve. And today we're actually going to go to the book of Romans chapter 12. And we're going to start thinking about how we can use our gifts to serve others. And so we're going to read Romans chapter 12, verses 3 through 7, and then just talk real briefly here about what these verses are saying to us, about what it looks like for us to recognize and use our gifts. So let me read these verses to you. This is Romans 12, starting at verse 3. And it says this: "For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself or yourself more highly than you ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to his measure of faith that God has assigned." So already Paul's starting to set it up. If we're going to be thinking about us and people, he's already laying out for us that we need to put ourselves and others in the right perspective. And so he says, let's not start thinking of ourselves more highly than we ought. Instead, we should think with sober judgment. And so he goes on in verse 4 here. "For as one body, we have many members, and those members do not all have the same function. So we, though many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another. Having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, in proportion with our faith. If service, then in our serving. The one who teaches, in his teaching. The one who exhorts, in his exhortation. And the one who contributes, in generosity. The one who leads, with zeal. And the one who does acts of mercy, with cheerfulness." So we actually added verse 8 into all of that. But here's why I chose this for us today. We talked about this one time before at C3 Students. We had a time where we talked about recognizing that God has created us with a purpose, that He has instilled within all of us, a deep-seated desire to do something, to accomplish something. And we call that our purpose. It's why we exist. And in that, one of the weeks that we talked about what our purposes are, we talked about our gifts, and we said that we were all created to serve. One of the things that Paul teaches us here in these verses and in other verses that talk about gifts is that as believers, God has given us a gift, sometimes multiple gifts, but God has given us gifts. And He's given us those gifts for us to use those gifts. And what Paul does is he uses the analogy or the illustration of the body. So if we were to think about our bodies, we would say that our bodies are made up of many different parts. We talk about the eye, we talk about the ear, we talk about the nose, the mouth, we talk about our hands, our feet, all of these different parts. And while they are all different parts, they have their own unique and different uses. Our eyes let us see. Our ears let us hear. Our mouths help us to form words and talk. Our hands help us to grab things, touch things, move things. Our feet propel us along. Like all of these different parts all have unique jobs that they do. We might say that they're the gifts that they have. But all these different parts, they all function together in order to make up one body. So like our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, our hands, our feet, like they are all part of our body. And because they are our body, they actually form and shape us to be able to do the things that God has created the human body to do. Now, take away any one or more of those parts and the body will not stop existing to be the body, but there will definitely be a loss because one of those parts are taken away. But when they all work together, they function as the body should. And so what Paul's saying is if we take that same idea that our bodies are made up of all these little parts that do certain things, but all together they make the body, he's saying, well, that's what it looks like for us within the church, within the body of Jesus Christ. That each of us, we're all unique, we're all different, and we all come with different gifts. But we need each of these different gifts. We need all of these differences in order for the body or the church to function the way the church was designed to function. And so your gifts are necessary and needed in order for the church to do what the church has been called out to do. Now, if you choose not to use your gifts, what will happen? Well, for sure, the church will suffer the loss because you're not participating in what you've been called to participate in along with the church. But the church will still function to be the church. It just won't be the same without you. And so what we want to start thinking about today is we want to start thinking about how your gifts connect you to the larger body of Christ. I believe as a youth pastor that students, especially students, that you guys have gifts, you have talents, and they're there for you to use for the benefit of the church so that the work of the church, the goal of the church can be accomplished with all of us, through all of us. I don't believe that you as teenagers need to wait until you're an adult for you to use your gifts. And one of the cool things about C3 is that C3 is making huge steps forward to try to create space for you guys as students to begin to use your gifts and to serve within the larger church. Now, that's an incredible thing because basically what the elders and the leadership are saying is that we recognize that even students, especially students, they have gifts and they have talents and they can be used within the church for the benefit of the church. So today, as you go through your time of serving, I want you to begin to think about what it might look like for you to use your gifts. Now you might wonder, what do you mean when you say gifts? Well, I kind of included verse 8 there in our reading, and it goes on and it talks about some specific spiritual gifts. It talks about things like exhortation. It talks about things like generosity and giving. It talks about things like serving. It talks about things like prophecy. If we were to actually be talking about gifts, we would spend a little bit more time talking about what the different spiritual gifts are. I don't want to waste too much time in doing that, all to say that we will come back at another time and we will talk about some of those gifts in more detail. What I want to challenge you to do is for you to begin thinking and discovering your gifts. What are some of the things that you love to do? What are some of the talents or the things that you do really well? What are some of the things that hobbies or jobs or just things that you do that are really a passion of yours? Well, a lot of times if we can pinpoint what some of those things are, we can begin to see what those gifts might be. You might really enjoy singing or playing an instrument. Well, one of the ways that you might be able to use your gifts is to be part of the student praise team, or maybe even step up and be part of the church worship team. That is a way for you to use the gift that God has given you to come and bless someone else by using that gift. Maybe you're really good with kids. Maybe you just have a knack for kids. You like spending time with kids. You're gentle and compassionate. Well, maybe you want to think about joining the C3 Kids Leadership Team and giving time on Sunday mornings to be with the C3 kids, or maybe even serve as one of our volunteer nursery attendees who can come in and help with the church nursery at different events and different times of the year. That's using your gifts. So as you move through today, I want you to begin thinking about what your gifts might be, and I want you to ask your question, are you using your gifts? And if you are, great. Let us know how you are using them. If not, well, reach out to us and begin asking and saying, hey, I think these are my gifts. How can I start using them? Now, if you don't know what your gifts are, don't worry. We have a great tool that you can use called the Shape Inventory that'll help you discover what your gifts are. And you can actually download that from the website, and you can complete that either today or at some point during the week. Now, how does this all impact what we're doing with Serve Week? Well, this week, today, one of our goals is to begin thinking about how we care for those around us. And so we're going to be talking about serving our neighbors, specifically the people we know. Now, we've put some ideas on the webpage about how you might serve your neighbors, the people that you know. But I would like for you to actually take the next step and say, how can I use my gifts to serve my neighbors? And that might be a little more of a challenge for you to actually have to sit down and think about what your gifts might be and how you can use your gifts to bless or serve your neighbors. But that's the purpose of this week, to get you thinking about how you can use your gifts to serve. So today, what is your gift? Are you using it for serving? And how, or maybe if you're not, how can you be using your gift to serve? Okay? So make sure you check out the rest of the webpage here today. Find out what it is that you might be able to do, but go out there, think of some neighbors that are around you, think of a way that you can serve them today. Use the ideas below or come up with your own. Don't forget to take a picture, send it to us, and we will post them tonight on social media. All right, guys, that's going to do it for day 2. Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.